This is George Dionne of Metal Express Radio, and I'm here with Marta Gabriel of Crystal Viper. How you doing today, Marta?
Hi, George. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
If I knew absolutely nothing about Crystal Viper, how would you describe the band's music to me?
I would say that Crystal Viper is a classic heavy metal act with female vocals, melodic riffs, and strong melodies that will make you want to headbang.
Your new album, The Cult, comes out, I believe, January 29th. There's a couple different dates for around the world, but I read that the lyrics were inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. Is that an author you read growing up, or is it somebody you recently got into?
I got to Lovecraft recently because for years my husband was saying something like that I should really start to read his stories because, Bart, my husband, he knows that I love to read. I love this kind of fantasy stuff and so on. And I finally, it was last year, at the beginning of last year, I finally started reading Lovecraft because we actually had a lot of his books at home because Bart was reading them before I started. And when I started reading his stories, it was like, I felt like someone would give me an injection with an ideas for songs, for lyrics, for music in general. I got into his stories so much that, for example, when I was reading his stories during the day, and then I couldn't continue because I was about to do something. I was continue the story while listening to audiobooks. Later, when I was reading at night and then I was going to sleep, I was having dreams about those stories. That was crazy. And on the next day when I was waking up, my head was already full of music that was only waiting to be recorded on my computer with my instruments. And in my case, it usually works like that. I need to be inspired by something. I need an inspiration because thanks to those inspirations, music is born in my head. It's never like that I sit with my instruments and say, okay, now I need to compose a song and start from nothing. I never do that because it doesn't work that way for me. When I have an inspiration, when there is something that I'm really getting to it, music just starts playing in my head. I know it sounds weird to some people. Even my husband loves that. It's a kind of musical schizophrenia or something. But, if it's an illness, please don't heal me because this is how I work on music, actually. Really, I just hear melodies in my head and I just need to sit down and record. And this is what Howard Phillips Lovecraft done to me with his stories. So at the end, we have an album where all songs are inspired by his stories. It's not a concept album, but all songs are connected in a way that they are inspired by his stories. So at the end, we have the Cult album, which is almost like a huge tribute to his works, to Lovecraft's works. I remember even in the booklet on the thanks list, I mentioned Howard Phillips Lovecraft, and I said thank you for giving me inspirations to work on this album. That was beautiful, really.
He's actually kind of a local legend around here. I live in Massachusetts, and he's from Rhode Island. And they do a lot of stuff, a lot of tributes and stuff to him over in Rhode Island. He's actually kind of a big character around here.
Yeah, I can imagine. In general, the impact that Lovecraft have on pop culture is simply outstanding. It's like, and what's even interesting, I was speaking with some of Crystal Viper fans, and of course they know the album is inspired by Lovecraft and so on, and many people started actually to read his stories because they are curious what's the Cult album is about. So yeah, that's great.
So one of the songs you've released from the album so far is The Cult. Which Lovecraft story was that inspired by?
The Cult. Lyrics of this track are inspired by the Call of Cthulhu story.
Probably his more famous one.
Yes, but I would say that it's not my favorite story at all. I mean, I love this one. It's great, but my favorite one is At the Mountains of Madness. When I read this one, I was like, wow, what a story. Yeah, so yeah.
Are you planning on releasing another single before the album's released or as the album's released?
We plan to release some cool stuff. I'm not sure exactly when, but for sure there will be some cool news on the internet, on YouTube, and so on. So stay tuned. Take a look on our Facebook profile from time to time. We will surely announce it earlier when there will be something to watch or to listen.
You have a couple cover songs as bonus tracks on the album. One of them is King Diamond's Welcome Home, and you got King Diamond guitarist Andy LaRocque to appear on that. How did you get him involved?
We know Andy for a couple of years right now, and he's a friend of ours. And I know that not many people knows that, but Andy co-produced one of our earlier albums. He did mixes on Metal Nation album, and he was co-producing it together with Marta Gabriel. And Andy is one of the most talented guitarists that I know, and he's such a lovely person. So we simply asked him if maybe he would like to join on this track with us, and we were super happy when he agreed. And I think it was also interesting experience for him to join, because he's performing this song with King Diamond on stage for more than 3 decades, and now he was asked to record to take part in the new version of the song that someone else recorded. So yeah, I suppose it was interesting for him as well. But what is the greatest thing about that he agreed to record the solo on the song is that every time I'm listening to our version of Welcome Home with Andy LaRocque in it, I'm having my fun moment. I'm listening to this song, and every time I'm like, I can't believe that, it's so great. Except playing in a band, I'm a huge metal fan as well, and I totally love King Diamond, and this is just unbelievable. He agreed. I was just, I was as happy as a kid that was, given a new Lego set.
That's a good comparison. I like that. You releasing the album on Listenable Records. You were formerly with AMF Records. Did your contract just run out, or was there an issue you had to find a new label?
After we released Tales of Fire and Ice album, our contract with AFM Records simply expired, and we thought that it will be better to not expand it any longer, and we decided to work on the new album first, on The Cult, and then to find a new label. So when we were recording The Cult, we were a kind of indie band without contract. We were totally unsigned. And this is also, I usually say that this The Cult album is bringing us as a band to our early days, to the very beginning of Crystal Viper, not only musically, but also with the situation that we were in, because we were working on this album as an indie band, and it was exactly the same situation when we were working on the Curse of Crystal Viper on our first album. We were unsigned and we were working only on music. We were focusing on music. We weren't thinking about anything else, and that was also this time. So we finished The Cult, and then we started to look for a new record company when the album was completely finished.
Okay. You got a couple of great physical media packages with the vinyl and the T-shirts and the CDs and stuff like that. Are you a huge fan of the vinyl format yourself?
Yes, of course. And to be honest with you, I'm a fan of this format since I was a child because I was born in 1984. So, and my father was a huge music lover. There was a lot of vinyls at home. Oh, there was a lot of different music, and I was always happy when my father was bringing new records home. I remember my very first musical crush, and it was Shakin' Stevens. I'm not sure if you know this artist. It was kind of pop rock and roll, something like that. But I remember there were a lot of vinyls. There were stuff like Queen, Europe, Bon Jovi, a lot of hard rock stuff and so on. And yeah, and now we are grown-up people, and I still love vinyls. And I'm also, I'm a music fan. I'm still a huge music fan. So when my favorite band is releasing something new, I want to have it in my head. Of course, it's easier to go on Spotify or on YouTube and to listen to music. But for me, maybe it's because I was born in those, in 80s. But for me, it was always something very cool to have this the CD, the vinyl, the cassette in my head, in my hands, to open it, to look inside the booklet, to read the lyrics, to see the photos of the band. I even know that some of my friends like the smell of the vinyls. So,
right.
yeah, and the same with cassettes and so on. So I'm a kind of, maybe not I'm that huge collector as my husband is, but I like to buy vinyls. I like to buy cassettes. And this is the first time in Crystal Viper history that we have a album on the cassette, actually, on tape. This is so great. I remember myself going to school on the bus with my Walkman, listening to Iron Maiden tapes.
Oh,
and and this is also another reason that the Cult is taking us back in time, because there are so many cool things going on around this album. And I would like to mention also about something new we did with this album. We released a shred version of this album, and it's a version without my vocals. It's in totally instrumental version, and all melodies that I originally sing on the main version of the album, all melodies are played on guitars. So there are lots of beautiful melodies, guitar harmonies, and great solos. So even in Crystal Viper, in the band, we make a joke that if there is someone who never liked my vocals, he can finally listen to Crystal Viper.
You have some excellent kind of old school artwork for the cover. Who's responsible for that?
The author of the cover art is an artist. It's Mario Lopez. And he did an amazing job with this one, especially because we had very specific idea for the cover. Of course, we wanted it to be related to Lovecraft stories and so on, but we also wanted the cover to have this classic old school heavy metal look, like the cover arts in the 80s. We also wanted the cover art to show the atmosphere of the album, and one additional thing is that we wanted to make sure that fans of Lovecraft will take a look at the cover art and they will know what it's the album about. And I will tell you one interesting thing about the cover art. If you take a look very closely, then on the left, on the balcony, you can see all members of Crystal Viper.
Ah, I don't think I
Yeah,
know that.
we are we are very small on this cover art. We are laughing that Mario was probably painting us with a needle, but we are very we are very, very tiny, but if you take a look closely, you can actually say who is who. So yeah, when you have an occasion, just take a look because it's pretty cool.
So are you going to be able to tour on this album, do you think? Or is the lockdown going to pretty much kick it out till the fall or next year?
I have no idea, to be honest. Our tour with Raven and with Wolf, and it was a huge tour, it was already postponed 2 times. All of our live shows from the past year were, of course, cancelled or postponed. And this is actually a new English word that I learned because English is my second language, and I learned word postponed. I didn't knew. Yeah, seriously, I didn't knew that word before. So yeah, this 2020 brought me some new words in English. But I have no idea what will happen. I really hope that we will be able to back on tour in 2021, especially because after we released Tales of Fire and Ice, it was released, if I'm not wrong, it was released in December or in November, something like that, at the end of 2019. Then we played only 2 very short tours, which gave us 8 shows in total. So after Tales of Fire and Ice, we played only 8 live shows, and then the pandemic began. So we had no occasion actually to promote the previous album, and I really hope it won't be like that with the Cult. But well, safety first, and I hope that it will change, but to be honest, I'm not very optimistic at the moment because there are more and more lockdowns happening here in Europe. Some countries are just closing the borders right now. Everything that is going on in Poland right now also doesn't look very optimistic. So I really don't know. We need to sit and wait. And because of this also sitting and waiting, we decided to work on this album, on the Cult, because when we got back from this very short tour last year in February, we already knew that some shows were cancelled or postponed. So we decided to not waste the entire year. And we came up with an idea to record the new album. So yeah, we started to work on it in March, and it was completely done in August. It was done so quick, so fast. And maybe that's why there is, I believe you can hear this energy on the album, this happiness from feeling and so on, because maybe it's because we were aware of that. This might be the only one musical stuff that we would be able to do in 2020. But also another interesting stuff, and this is what we are doing right now. So even if the live shows won't happen this year, we will be still busy with music because we started new projects, and we are still keep on working on music. I cannot tell you right now what we are doing because it's a kind of a secret right now, but I promise very soon you will hear some very cool news. So keep on following us on our social media because there are some very cool stuff to announce.
Oh, well, I figured I'd just ask you what books you're reading right now to find out what kind of music you'll be coming out with in the future.
To be honest with you, I plan to read more and more of Lovecraft because there are so many of his stories. And recently, to be honest, I didn't have much time to read a lot. but I'm going back to read Lovecraft. And also, my husband made for us a huge surprise. It was like 1 month or 2 months ago. He came to the room when I was sitting and doing something, and he told me, I bought some books. And I looked at him and I asked him, how many? He said, a lot. Try to guess. And I said, I don't know, 8, 10. He said more. And I asked him actually how many, and he bought 76 books.
Oh,
And
geez.
there are there are old horror books and fantasy stuff, and I've seen that there are some Masterton's horrors, and I was reading his horrors when I was actually in high school, and it's a pretty funny stuff because when I was in high school and I was in Polish classes, and we were working on some Polish literature, some books that you need to read when you are in high school, because after that you are working on these books with your teacher and with your classmates. Instead of reading those books that I was used to read, to have some better degrees from Polish and so on, I was reading Mastertons under the table. So, yeah.
So you've been in a band, you've been in Crystal Viper for almost 20 years now. What would you say was your favorite or best gig that you've had?
Favorite gig. It's very hard to choose because every live show is very special and every live show is different. And before I go on stage, I have this weird feeling that maybe I'm not nervous and so on, but I'm very excited. So when I go on stage, I totally lose control and I feel like in a different world where I really belong in 100%. So I really appreciate every moment when I'm on stage because I really love to do that. And this is what I miss most right now. But I can tell you something interesting about one live show. It wasn't the best one because it's one of the worst, actually. Do you want me to tell this story?
Oh, absolutely, because that was my next question. What's your worst gig?
Oh, so I can read in your mind.
That's right.
Okay, worst gig. I don't remember the country. I don't know. Probably it was Switzerland or Austria. It was a live show that the promoter forgot or didn't want it to promote on the internet, on social media, or anywhere because there were no posters, no flyers, nothing. And we went to play this live show, and there were 5 people in the club. There was nice looking stage with lights, nice sound engineer, everything. And with saying that there were 5 people in the club, I also mean our crew. I mean our technician, our manager, and the guy behind the bar, and the sound engineer. So maybe 7 people in the club, except us on stage playing this live show. So it was so weird, I felt like I would be traveling 1,000 kilometers just to play a rehearsal somewhere. And after this live show, we were about to go to the hotel, and we were told that we were told the address, and we were told that when we enter, there will be a table, and we will find the keys to our rooms on the table. And we couldn't find the hotel because it wasn't the actual hotel you probably can imagine. Everybody knows how hotels looks like. This one looked like, like an old hospital or something like that. It was so creepy. It was in the park with no lights and so on. So we enter, and there was a huge room with this table with keys on it. And we brought those keys and started looking for our rooms. And it was so creepy. And I really believe it was an old hospital or something like that. There were how to say that in English? There were bars in the windows and so on. Yes, yes, yes.
It's probably an
So,
old insane asylum.
yeah, probably. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah, you know, the one thing was that live show, and the second one was this hotel. Yeah,
The
but
important
it
thing
wasn't.
is, the
Maybe
important
it
thing is,
wasn't.
did you get paid?
Of course.
There you go.
Yeah, but you know, it's not the main thing. It's not the main thing, and maybe it wasn't the worst live show, but probably it was the most interesting experience for us because it actually happens only once. But the truth is that when you go on tour, you never know what will happen.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's also maybe this is also what is great and a great thing in musician life, that you never know how your next day will look like. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for speaking with Metal Express Radio.
Thank you very much for the interview and for supporting Crystal Viper. It really means a lot to us. And yeah, I hope that listeners, your listeners, listeners of Metal Express Radio will like our new album. And because we are very proud of it, and we had a lot of fun when we were working on it. So yeah, thanks a lot.
You should be proud of it. It's a really good album. They sent it to me. I listened to it. I was like, why haven't I heard of this band before? They've been around for 15 years. I'm like, this is a great album.
Really, I'm really, really glad you like it. Nice to hear that. Thank you very much.